put some bass in your voice. And Jen, this one is great. Sometimes the chord's a little wonky, so just play with it. All right, I'll get off the stage and I'll let you guys. What's up, everybody? I'll get off the stage. Bye.
Thank you, sir. All right, how are we doing today? Are we doing good? Good. So, mine is low. I'm just gonna have to talk real loud. Hers is the better mic. So if anybody can't hear me, y'all do my indicator, just hold your hand up so I get a little louder. All right? So my name is Zach.
And I'm Jen.
And we're Stivers Homestead. So first off, has anybody seen any of our videos, know who we are? All right, so quite a few of y'all. We always like to do that at the beginning to kind of get a feel on what you know about us and what you may not know about us. But today we are going to be talking about sustainability and preparedness. Our talk won't be a full hour. We always like to open it up at the end for some Q&A. This is the opportunity for face-to-face conversation, right? So we give you all a lot of videos, we see your comments, but we can't always get to every one of them. So you all that traveled here, we're definitely going to have an opportunity for that. So kind of be thinking about them, and we'll make sure that we have plenty of time. But jumping right into this, because we give you all, when we do YouTube, you get about 15 minutes of our day, right? So you don't know everything about us. So we want to take a minute to really break down who we are and what we're about.
Especially if you've just caught like videos here and there and you get little glimpses and you're like, oh, it looks like he's home all the time, or their kids aren't in school. What's going on there? So we just like to explain it a little bit better, but we are a family of 4 in southeastern Kentucky. We call it the heart of Appalachia. That's where we are. Our kids are here, but I think they're out at the booth, so they're not in the room right now.
Yeah, they should be rolling in soon.
Our daughter Raylan is 7 and our son Wyatt is 9. So they're a big part of our family. They're a big part of our farm and our compound that we call it. But we are a homeschooling family, so we call it the home-based family life. We're always together on the farm. He does have a full-time job outside of YouTube, Facebook, Etsy, all those things, but he does get to work from home. So that allows the 4 of us to always be together, and the kids don't have to run off and go to school, and it's just a really big part of farm life to us.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the biggest questions I get is, how did you get a work from home job? Like, what does that take? Because I would love to work from home and be able to farm and do this stuff on the side. Well, when Jen and I first got together, she looked me square in the eye. She said, I want a bunch of kids. I'm going to homeschool. Closer? Is that better? Okay. All right, there you go. We're about to like lick this thing.
I feel sorry for whoever uses it next.
Right. Call Gil.
Sorry.
Okay, so we'll try this out now. So one of the biggest questions I get is about working from home. And so when she and I met, she made it very clear to me she wanted a big family and she wanted to homeschool those children, and she wanted to be a homemaker, as one would call it. She wanted to have a farm, she wanted a homestead, she wanted to do all these things. I said, I'm in, let's do this. So we got together. 6 months later, we were pregnant with our first son, Wyatt, and then about less than a year after we dated, we were married. We knew that this is what we wanted. It was the future that we had. So when she told me that, I knew I needed to think about my own career, right? My God has blessed me with this family, and I need to protect and provide for them. I also know that it's going to be a little unnatural compared to every other life that's out there, or what I was used to growing up. So from that moment, I started investigating work from home opportunities. How can I make this happen? What are some of the areas of my career that maybe I could go that is more home-based work? And so that's what I started doing. It's funny enough, I actually work in a technology space. It helps out in the YouTube world, but it's completely different than what I would do at home with my farming. That area is a career area that you can do a lot of work from home space. Thankfully, as the years have come, is a place that you can really start investigating those and having legit work from home opportunities. So for you all that are maybe thinking, how can I do that? Just start Googling. It's so easy to start Googling these things on where can you work from home at, because now it's not just pyramid scheme work from home places, right? Because when I was growing up, that was the only option you had to try to do this, and you're gonna make millions of dollars, right? Now it's different. Now it is legit. There's a lot of stuff that's out there, so really just start investigating on your own.
And not only does that allow us to have that home-based family life, but it allows him to be at home all the time. And his job is very important, but say a cow broke out of a fence or a pig started eating a goat, you just never know. Then he can say, hey, I've got to run out real quick. And they know, like they get it. It's farm farm life. It's not something that they live, but they understand that it's stressful, so
Right.
it definitely helps.
And it helps that I've been honest with my work as well. They know what I do. So there has been times I've been talking to my boss and I was like, we're going to have to postpone this. There's a cow walking down my driveway I see right now. And you know, I know I'm fortunate in what I have, but what I'm getting at is I worked for this. I've built up over 6 years of time to get to this point to where I am now, and you can too. You just have to be honest, you have to search for it, and you have to want it, most importantly.
And one thing that we are working on, and we've been working towards from the moment that we started this journey, is him coming home full time. And
Right.
that is the end goal. You know, it's hard to get to that point. I'm sure all of you know that's what we all want. We all want to be home on the farm 24/7 and live this beautiful farm life where we don't have to leave and don't have to have the 9 to 5. But it's a journey, and we're still on that journey. It's going to take
Close.
us a
We're
while.
close.
Every day gets a little bit closer, and that's what we always tell people, to encourage you. Every day you're closer to that goal, so just keep pushing towards it and don't give up. We've kind of started this compound family life that I mentioned a few minutes ago, and with that, it also allows us to have other people on our farm working for us. So his mom, if you watch any of our videos in the past 4 months, she's moved to our place with us. She runs our store that we started, our little Homestead Farmstead store, and she helps out with all of the Etsy, so it's not just me and him anymore. My brother also lives with us. He kind of came with us.
Yeah, he's been there since the beginning.
Yeah, he's been there since the beginning, since we moved to the new place that we're at now. But he is also able to be Zach's farm hand, and you know, it's all kind of sacrifices that everyone's
From
making,
everybody, yeah.
because they're not rich. They're not getting rich doing these jobs, but they enjoy it and they know that it's more worthwhile for them, and it makes them feel a little bit better to be able to work towards something and not be working for someone else who doesn't necessarily care who you are or what you're doing.
Right, and to end it on the compound piece, the last thing I would say is both of those people did not agree with anything that we were doing when we started doing this. And I know that's a lot.
They had no interest.
Zero interest whatsoever. I always joke, my mom's generation, kind of that 50 to 60 area, and it looks like we have several that are probably in that area as well. So I could be wrong, but in Kentucky, this is what I would see. My great-grandfather was a tobacco and cattle farmer, completely commercial. He did not even raise one of the cattle for himself. Every single cattle went to the market because that's how he survived. Like, he needed to spend every money, then he went to Walmart and got his beef. Well, his workers were all of his grandkids, one of those being my mother. So they were forced out in these fields, right? Like, you don't have a choice. You're getting paid, but you're the employee. Like, we got to keep this farm running. So that generation kind of stepped back and was like, I don't really want anything to do with that. I'm going to be country, but I'd rather just go buy it at Walmart. It's a lot easier. So kind of that mindset that my mom and your mom kind of had, well, a little bit different with your mom. It took them a minute to come around. And I know when we've talked to a lot of you all, you're like, we really want a compound, but the family's not there yet. They're not really into it. They don't get it. They don't understand it. I always say if you build it, they'll come, because they will eventually. But you just got to make sure that you're not letting them drag you down to say, you know what, maybe this doesn't make sense. Maybe we shouldn't do this. Keep powering through and always be a branch. That's what we tell our kids all the time. Don't be the trunk of the tree where everybody is. Go out on that branch and get the good fruit, because that's where everybody's going to point the finger at you and call you crazy, but you're going to succeed much more than anybody on that trunk will.
So on our farm, we have gardens, goats, cows, chickens, pigs, guineas, turkeys, dogs, and cats. And I think that covers it, but there's always a chance that it doesn't.
Right.
My brother texted us a picture last night, and there was a baby chick or a baby guinea running around the farm, and we have no idea who it belongs to. So add that one to the list.
It's
It
great.
could be a turkey, who knows? But that's kind of our farm in a nutshell, and it's on 12 acres, so it's not a huge ranch or this giant property that's 40, 50, 60, or even 200 acres. It is small. It's 12 acres, and not even all 12 of that is really usable. Some of it's woods, which is important to us as well.
Yeah, we'll get in touch into that a little bit more there, but we want to make sure that whenever you're looking for a property, you're looking for something with some form of a water source and some form of woodage. Like, so it'd be very nice to have 12 straight acres of pasture, but that's only going to give you some piece of the sustainability that you actually need. You need some woods, and you always got to have water. So if you're in that search, make sure those are the top two. So why sustainability and why prepping? So this is a hot topic, especially in the homestead community nowadays, especially the word prepping, right? It's a keyword, it's a hot word, it's hot on YouTube, but it's something that most of us, and I know us, have been doing for a very, very long time. Prepping can have a bad term behind
Negative.
a negative term to some, but it is freedom. Like, being a prepper is your freedom for your life. And what I mean by that is no one has your back. right? Like this community right here is fantastic. And we'll barter with each other and we'll help with each other, but most all of us are nowhere close to each other, right? Our neighbors that are beside us aren't there out for us. So if you have enough food and wood for heat and a water source, protection, that gives you the freedom to be happy with life and not to worry.
Obviously, in these past few years, we've seen all of the inflation, all of the shortages. Everything is skyrocketing. Everything's hard to get your hands on, and it's crazy out there. It's a crazy world. And, you know, before this, when prepping had kind of the negative term or the negative face to it, it was taboo. Like, not everybody wanted to do that because it can come off as selfish or rude. You know, you're taking all the supplies from everyone else. But now I think it kind of is starting to make more sense to everyone. But for us, it's always been important, and it wasn't always just about, you know, the end of the world or politics or what happened or inflation or shortages. It was just about a peace of mind.
Yeah, and the most important part is the broken food system. So take all that out. Say everything stays exactly how it is, nothing changes. The food system is broken. And what I mean by that is the food that is provided to us in grocery stores is like illegal in 100+ countries. And we're just ingesting it right on in like it's nothing because we're told it's fine. You have to start questioning if another country isn't even going to allow their people to eat it, what's in it, right? We don't know. We have no idea what's in it. And that is what we're starting to see, the rise in so many diseases in our children that are coming out, these brand new things that we've never heard of. There's labels on every kid that it seems like that we know. You know, a lot of them are legit, and a lot of it's coming from the food that we're all putting into our bodies. So for us, from the homesteading area, our number one reason we do that is just to have clean, healthy food being put into our bodies and especially into our children's bodies.
So I want to ask a question. How many of you consider yourselves homesteaders or farmers already and haven't started yet? Or you have started yet and you're already on the journey? Cool. So how many are wanting to start the journey? Awesome. It's about even, about 50-50. Yeah. So one of the conversations we had when we first started this journey was, how far are we going to take this? And that's such there's a yellow jacket. He's been following us around all day.
He has. He's been by our booth all day.
Or is it a wasp?
You might give him a swing.
Yeah.
He's going. Maybe.
He's got a hat. He'll get it.
Okay, very good.
You have to ask yourself when you're starting this, how far are you willing to take it? Meaning, how much acreage do you want? Do you want any acreage? Can you just do it in your backyard and that be enough for, say, yourself or your husband or your children? I mean, it very well could be enough. How much acreage do you want? Do you want gardens? Do you want meat animals? Are you just trying to replace your grocery bill with vegetables? Or are you trying to go the whole 9 yards, 60, 70, 80, or 90% of your grocery bill?
And are you willing to poop in a bucket?
Yeah.
So if y'all been watching us, y'all know before our house that we have now, we were off-grid, all the way from composting bucket toilets. And that was something that I thought that I never would miss.
Yeah.
And at this moment, I swear, if somebody said you can have that back and we'll give you a few more acres on top of it, I probably wouldn't a heartbeat. So if your spouse or somebody's looking at you and it might seem like a crazy idea, like all the way to getting a tractor supply bucket that they were getting raffles out of, and you happen to poop on it, don't throw it out the window just yet, because I promise you there is some value in that just debt-free life and just having that even extra freedom of knowing that you don't really owe anything. And yes, that comes all the way down to sacrificing a toilet sometimes. But it's fine, I promise. For the ones that are searching, I would buy raw land, perfect, of what I want, and then live in a camper, start building what you want. It's hard, believe me, we've been there. But the experience and looking back on it is going to be memories that you and your family will never, ever forget. And so I would just challenge you all, if you're leaning like maybe we should get a house and sacrifice some land, don't do it. Go the other route. Get all the land you need.
And part of deciding how far you want to take it is sitting down and talking about the sacrifices that you're going to have to make to get to that point. And that's what we did at the start. We lived in the pole barn, like he was talking about, off-grid, pooping in buckets. We had our water in barrels that we got from a water hose down the hill. Couldn't wash clothes. My mother-in-law had to do it. But at the time, we knew that all of that was not permanent. We knew that it was a very short span of our lives to where we could save money and be debt-free and then get to the property that we are now and have that dream finally come to fruition.
Yeah, and so especially for the ones, it sounds like we have a good mix of folks that are still at the early stages. So what can you do right now while you're still trying to find that property or find that perfect piece of land? You can start preserving. You can start canning. You can do these areas to teach yourself and learn, so once you get there, you're already going to be an expert at it. So you heard me talk about the grocery stores and a lot of the bad food that's coming out. But what you can do is go to a local farmer and get clean, fresh food in bulk, because I promise you, they're going to know terms like, do you have a bundle of canning tomatoes? Do you have a bushel of green beans for canning? Those are words that farmer already knows. He's going to bring you a big box, and he's not going to charge you for the nice, pretty ones that are sitting right there. So you can get those. You can learn how to start snapping green beans. You can start learning how to can them, and that way that you're really getting experience before you get thrown into the fire, because it is a fire.
And not just canning. There's so many ways to preserve your food, but if you're going to start growing it, you've got to start thinking about those ways and then decide which one you want to do. For us, we do all of it. We do canning, dehydrating, freezing, fermenting. We just recently got the freeze dryer, which has been a really cool thing. It makes food last for a really long time. But, you know, once you start getting that garden going, like most people will say, oh, I have a black thumb, I can't grow anything. Well, in those next couple of years, if you keep trying, that food is going to start coming in like crazy. And you're going to look at your spouse and you're going to be like, okay, now what do we do with it? So all those skills you can go ahead and learn and know all how to do all that stuff before you get started, and then it gets overwhelming.
So next on the docket is, what specifically do you need to prep to really have food, at least for a year, for you and your family? So this is going to be some of the more hardy stuff that you can have. So we're not talking just like watermelon. Like, watermelon isn't the greatest thing for you to go get a bunch of and try to preserve. Really, the best way to do watermelon is freeze drying, or going to be a jam or jelly. So you got to think about it in some kind of survival situation. Those are two things that are not going to fill you up quickly with a small amount of food. So you're going to start with garden veggies. So some of the top garden veggies that we like to do are especially tomatoes, because tomatoes are versatile. You can mix them into a bunch of different stuff: soups, spaghetti sauces, diced tomatoes. It's more of a flavor with a lot of nutrients, right? So if you have a bunch of rice that you have back, you can throw any one of those canned tomato sauces into that rice that you've cooked for a different flavor. Because you don't want to get so bored and where it's just survival to eat food so you can do that. You want some kind of life. And so part of life is flavor, and tomatoes really help you out in that area.
Chickens for eggs are important, and I know, you know, a lot of people say, well, I don't want to start out with animals, you know, I want to start out growing my food, or at least learning how to preserve my food for when I do grow it. And for us, chickens weren't even the first thing we got. It was pigs, which was the worst mistake. Don't ever do that. Don't get pigs first.
We got 2 ginormous Yorkshire feeder pigs.
Who grew very quickly.
Much faster than I thought. And I've actually talked to a few of you all today about how, yeah, pigs are easy because they go in a crate when you get them as little piglets, but they get to 300 pounds real fast. And then if you don't have a trailer or a way to haul them out or a way to catch them, then you're in a world of hurt. Believe me, I know. I've been bloody so many times because of pigs.
Yeah. But chickens for eggs are so important. Even if you just have a handful and, you know, they'll lay those eggs, you can go out and collect them. Even if you don't feel like it, you could even pay a neighbor kid to come over and do it, or pay your grandson or your granddaughter to go out and get those eggs. And that's a really important protein source. And when they start laying like crazy in the spring and the summer, early summer, you can really start putting those back. And that's a really, really good shelf-stable thing to have on your shelf if you're water glassing or, you know, freezing, all kinds of things you can do with eggs.
Yeah, and we really love the freeze drying method of our eggs. It's been really great. It's changed our lives when it comes to being able to preserve so many eggs. However, we do understand they're expensive. Now, it is something that I would highly recommend all of you all put back some savings to get, because it's going to change your preserving life. I promise you that. But like she mentioned, water glassing is a very old school, perfect way to preserve your eggs. And so that way you can at least have them once we hit that molt in that winter.
Now, this next on the list is not for everyone, but it's something that we feel important, because when you have something crazy happen, you know, say a snowstorm's coming or a natural disaster, everybody runs to the store and they get bread, eggs, and milk. So milk is another very important thing to us. And if you're just starting on the journey, that can seem overwhelming, but you don't have to get a cow. We started with dairy goats, and they are so easy to handle. Anybody can. They're gentle, they're very friendly, they're basically oversized dogs. Unless you have a great day, and then your dog's going to be bigger than the goat. But
who here has had goat milk? Wow, quite a few of you. That's awesome. So and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but for those that haven't, it doesn't taste like a buck. If you've had goat's milk and it's tasted bucky, you know what I mean, like the male goat, that farmer did not cool that milk down quick enough, or he has a buck and rut that's too close to his mom's. And so that can actually go into the milk, and that's why you're tasting that. Goat's milk should taste like a vanilla ice cream milkshake that has been melted down and cooled. I promise you, it's so sweet and it is absolutely delicious. So if you're against that, it's because you had goat's milk that didn't taste like goat's milk.
Now, a lot of people ask, well, what can I do with goat's milk? Can you make cheese? Can you make butter? And you can, but your cream line is not going to be as impressive as it would from, say, a Jersey cow or a brand new mama cow that you've pulled the baby off of, and you're getting all that cream. But we have made cheese. We've made ice cream with goat's milk. You just have to be patient. You have to learn how to work with her and work with the baby goat and just get that cream line up to where you want it. And different goats are better. Nubians are our favorites.
Sonnens.
Nubians are the favorite for personality, I think. Sonnens are the best milk producers.
Yeah, so there's a lot of difference. That's a popular question that we get, or what kind and how many goats do we need? So we have Nubians, which Nubians are going to have your best cream line.
Yeah.
Now, our Nubian that we have, we always seem to get the worst possible scenario first when we try to approach a different animal. And our Nubian Butters, if y'all seen on TV, is the worst milker ever. She is so smart and knows how to hold her milk back, unlike any of the others.
Or she'll just lay down.
Yeah, she just lay down, and we'll get the foot in there trying to get her up, and it's miserable. But anyways, Nubians have the best cream. We have Alpine goats, which are, what are they called?
They're Nupines.
Nupines, sorry. So Nupines are Nubians mixed with Alpines, and that's probably our hardiest goat when it comes to parasite resistance. And then we have Sonnens. Sonnens give us almost a gallon a day in milk, which is unheard of with goats. All the rest of them, I would say, would be about a quart to maybe a half gallon that we get. So if you're thinking about how many goats do I need, that kind of gives you an idea of which ones and how much you're getting.
So once you've kind of covered the milk, bread, and eggs, then you can try to move on to meat animals if you're looking at your spouse and you're saying, okay, we want to take it to the next level now. So that can start simple. We started with meat chickens, besides the pigs who didn't make it to butcher. But then we did meat chickens. Those are so simple. Some of these YouTube channels you'll watch, they'll do like 150 or 200 at one time in one day, and it takes them an hour and a half. That's not realistic. But you can raise 5 or 10, 15, 20, however you feel like you need for a year. Put them in the freezer, and then even if you don't feel like canning them right then, you can pull them out later, piece them up, and then start canning that meat. And canned chicken is amazing, and it's so good to have on the shelf. And meat chickens are very, very simple and very easy, and they'll prepare your next garden spot for you.
Yeah, and they really will. She touched on something that's kind of off topic, but just YouTube in general, and when you see something go so successful and you see 100 birds go down in an hour, please remember, we can edit, and it's not real life time, right? So I know we try definitely not to do that on our channel, but I never want anyone to be discouraged by them seeing something happen so successful on YouTube, and then you go and do it, and it takes you all day. The first time we butchered chickens, we did 7?
Yeah.
And it took us 8 hours.
And we cried a lot.
Yeah, it was awful, y'all. It was awful. We had a drill plucker, and that was not working. So I just want all y'all to know, if you are watching YouTube, never get down on yourself because it's going so well for them.
So after you decide on meat chickens, you get that under your belt, and that's easy. Then you can start thinking about other bigger, I call it bigger stock, livestock. Goats are a meat source. We've never ventured into that because they're just kind of our pets, and we reserve that for them. But cows, growing out a steer or two, and then also having a mom that you can milk is a great option. Rabbits are huge. We haven't done rabbits either. We raise rabbits, but we've mostly just did for breeding. But that's a very big source that everybody loves, and quail as well.
Yeah, and when you're ready for cattle, the way I suggest that, if you are definitely want to do dairy, the Angus Jersey mix is a very good meat source. So if you have a Jersey mama and you can introduce an Angus bull to that mama, that steer or just offspring in general that's going to come is an Angus Jersey mix. And you're going to have a fantastic meat cow there. That's no matter what. So you get the best of both worlds. So you don't have to have a pasture for Angus over here and a pasture for your Jersey cow over here. You can raise them together. So you just need to investigate a little bit more on what's those dual breeds that I can get my milk, but I can also get good meat out of.
So once you get all that under your belt and you sit back and you're like, okay, we're about 70-80% sustainable. We've got milk, we've got eggs, we've got dairy, cheese, butter, we've got meat animals, we've got it all, and our shelves are stocked. The one thing you're going to look at yourselves and you're going to say is, okay, well, what about flour? What about wheat? What about sugar? And those things, you really just cannot be self-sustainable on. It's almost impossible. But those things are on our our list that we just go ahead and prep.
Right.
You know, we buy in bulk from good sources. Sometimes it's not good sources. If it's on sale, it's better to have it than not have anything at all. But it's just kind of one of those things that you humble yourself and you're like, okay, I may not be able to grow all of it, not 100%, but I can look for sales and deals and I can go stock up and go bulk.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And make sure you're transitioning through that. You're cycling through. So if you're buying a bunch, don't let it sit down there for 10 years because you need to cycle through that food and just keep rotating, making sure that you have a fresh stock down in your basement or wherever it is that you're stocking. Now, I would say the next 4 are the 4 that we don't think about and talk about enough. Number 1 being wood. So I mentioned earlier, make sure that you have some kind of wooded area on your property because every year you're going to have storms that come through that put trees down. So, you know, we're obviously not wanting to cut trees down. You don't want to cut good living, healthy things that are there providing for us, but you do want to harvest the things that are already down. So all these trees that are down in your property are great, great sources. It is wood for you to chop up and put down in your basement or wherever your barn. Your family wood for heat. We never think about winter. It doesn't seem, it's like, well, if winter comes, I need to eat. Okay, well, if you're freezing to death, it doesn't matter how much food you have in your pantry. So we're big promoters to make sure that you have some kind of wood-burning stove that's going in your home of some form or fashion, and you're stocking up on wood all the time. We like to do it in the fall. It's the best time to get in the woods, find the down trees that are there, and it's not as hot dealing with the wood. But you don't have to get a log splitter. You can spend time chopping this, you know, because that's another investment. Get you an axe, call it your workout session, and go out there and chop some wood. But you always want to make sure you have plenty put back.
Rainwater catchment is very important to us as well, and not so much catchment, but also just having that water source. When you look for a property, for those who are starting their journey, the first thing that you need to look for is a water source. Is there a creek? Is there a pond? Is there an old pool that you could potentially siphon that water from and clean it up? Just any sort of water source. Mountain springs are huge in our area. They're very important, and I mean, they're about 100% clean if you can find that right from the mountain stream. But if you can't find a water source on your property, or if it just doesn't work out, then putting up rainwater catchment is important.
Yeah, rainwater catchment or trying to dig a well if you can get into that. But you got to make sure you have water and heat. That's like the number 2 things right there. Water and heat. If you can't get that, nothing else matters. You're not going to survive through the code, and you're obviously going to get dehydrated, not survive, and not need food.
And then when we started into this, my biggest part of it was the medicinal side of it and the herbs. Being able to provide medicine for my family was very important, because if you're going to live this life, then you can't just go off and join the rest of the world with all of that. You know, you can't run to the doctor every time there's a sniffle, or your kids, you know, they have a little scratchy throat. You don't want to run them off and, you know, get all this unnecessary stuff that we don't need. So I started looking into the medicinal part of it, and I fell in love with herbs. And if that's something that you're not into, I really encourage you to get into herbs. It can seem overwhelming and intimidating, but it's really not. Just take it one at a time. That's what I always tell people. Pick your top 5 herbs and then just go down that list and learn about each one and what you can do with it. Or you can look at it as take your top 5 family ailments. You know, do you have a certain child that has an allergy to this, or gets this sickness every spring or every fall, or is your husband have certain trouble with cold and flu that nobody else does, or does he have, you know, when the goldenrod blooms or when the honeysuckle blooms? And just take all of those and then go down the list. Figure out what applies to your family. Don't go off on the crazy herbs that you don't necessarily need, because then that's just more overwhelming. And we'll talk a little bit more about medicine here in a minute, but salves and tinctures, all the stuff that we make and sell, teas and herbs and spices are important to us because food is your medicine, and everything that you put in your body is going to reflect off of that. So if you're not learning how to do your own medicine, then you're kind of just up a creek.
Yep, and last but absolutely not least, protection. You got to have a way to protect your farm. And I'm not talking about the Army coming in and just taking it over. I'm talking about anything. I'm talking about bear that might come on. I'm talking about wildlife that might try to take down your fences and kill your animals. You need to have some form of protection. But also there is bad neighbors, right? There's bad neighbors that are out there. We moved to our property, and within 2 weeks, somebody broke into our house, or broke into our farm, took down our fence, and stole our goats. Within 2 weeks of being there, all because of that bad closing deal that happened out, and he didn't get his hay bales off our property by the time we moved there. That was it. Never met the man before in my life, and he did that and stole our goats. So you need to make sure that you have good protection. So that being a good perimeter fence. After that, that was the first thing I did. I don't care how much it costs. Fence this bad boy off because I need to have that protected out. Second is weapons. You need to make sure that you're trained and understand how to use your weapons on your farm. This is going to come in more in handy, not because of people, but because of a copperhead that came up on you that you need to be backing and shoot the gun on. Or a dog that came out, and obviously nobody wants to shoot a dog, but if they're attacking your animals on your property, this is something that you have to be prepared for. It's not all roses and butterflies, unfortunately, and you do have to be there to protect your animals because you put them there, right? So you need to make sure that you're well trained and you understand how to do that. The other side of that is the compound. So her brother-in-law, or her brother, my brother-in-law, that lives with us, he's ex-Coast Guard up in Alaska. I love having him on the property because he's just a second skilled hand when it comes to having weapons around. He understands it. He teaches our children how to use weapons because he's obviously more trained than I am. I love having that. I love having that help in there. So that's why we try to promote the compound so much, because everybody has a purpose. No, Jed's not going to be out there gardening very much, but he's a great farmhand, and I know he has our back when I can't see it, right?
And there's always safety in numbers. That's what I always tell people. So the compound's great, but the more people that you can add to your property that you trust and that have actual skills, there's safety in numbers, and it's never going to go the wrong way. So once you get all that and you learn how to do it, you sit back. Oh, am I dead? There it is. Wiggle it hard. Oh, he did say wiggle it. Hello? Okay, somebody remind me to wiggle it every. Hello?
Hello?
Okay, hopefully it stays. So you sit back with your spouse again, and you have another conversation, and you say, okay, we've gotten all these animals, we're now gardening, we're preserving everything, and then it comes time to harvest the animals, and nobody knows how to do it, or you decide to take it to the butcher. And we've been there, believe me, many times, and it's stressful. It's still kind of a journey that we're on. We've learned to harvest our chickens, and we know how to harvest deer and rabbits, small stuff, but we're still on the journey of butchering our own pigs and harvesting them.
Well, it's a lot about butchering it right?
Yeah.
I mean, most of us, if you've ever deer hunted and you've harvested your own deer, we know how to cut it up and get the meat out. But it's more about trying to do it right, like a butcher would, getting the correct cuts, getting your pork chops, etc.
Yeah. So, figuring that out. And that's a journey that we're still on, like I said, because we do have a local butcher who's just a great and honest man, and he's made a local business off of harvesting his neighbors and his community's animals. And it's important to us to support him and keep him in business, but it's also important to us to learn how to do that on our own and get that skill. So we're kind of in the middle of that and still on that journey, but it's just another step that you work towards. But if you're going to have all the animals and you're going to raise them and grow them out, and then it comes time to butcher, at least have the skill, know what to do, even if you don't feel like it that day or that season, and have the equipment to do it, which is not much. You can make a lot out of nothing and get it done.
Yeah, we're going to have to tell the group that organized this to not put us at the same time the pork processing's happening, so we can go over there and check that out too. No, I'm kidding. But other things that you need is basic skills how to learn. What do we have? Oh, so bread. Obviously, bread's a really good one to learn. If you have your eggs and you have your milk and you have your flour set back, well, you need to learn how to make bread now. And having that homemade bread every year or every week is something that she does for us, and it is fantastic. It's so good. She's done plenty of YouTube videos on kind of your daily bread, sandwich bread, what's the round, like artisan bread? Artisan bread. So those are stuff that you can easily do no matter where you are. If you're just, as long as you have a kitchen, right? And an oven. And even if you don't, which I recommend trying to learn, more of the outside cooking, that's a huge skill that we all need to know. Because we kind of have three things, right? Like stay and survive at our home, kind of stay close and survive, and then to go back to where we really have to go, right? So that stay close might be something that you need to think about in your wooded area. Like, I may need just to hide in my woods for a little while. Like, I just let the dust settle. So while you're out there, you're going to have to learn how to start a fire, right? So you need to make sure you have some flint or learn how to do it with a couple sticks, which is great fun for kids too, by the way. All this should not be scary. So let me pause there. You should not be learning these things and feel like, I've got to learn this right now because it's going to end. Make this fun. We spent Christmas Eve last year doing what we called a Little House on the Prairie Day. We didn't go inside the house. We cooked over a fire. We did all stuff outside because we had really nice weather in Kentucky, which was surprising. But we made it a fun thing. We collected wood. We collected walnuts. We let them get hammers and knock the walnuts out of that stuff. So learning how to build a fire, learning how to cook over a fire, so get you some cast iron. Those are good things to have because they'll never go bad, easy to clean, great seasoning. But learn how to do these little skills and make it fun day out of it.
And back to the medicine, and if you did have to go, say you did have to be in your woods for an extended amount of time, or say you just love your woods and you want to teach your kids everything that you can about your property, foraging is very important to us. So I would say that we know 90% of what is growing around us in our woods, in our yard. I know, a lot of people think it's weeds, and most of it is. It's invasive, but it's also very medicinal. So we focus a lot on teaching our kids that, and I like to teach him, teach anyone who comes over just what this stuff is in our yard and what we can do with it. Because if you're in a situation where you have to, you can have food and you can have medicine for free right in your yard. And it's one of those things that comes with experience and, reading books, watching people, but you can learn it all, and then it's so stuck in your head, and it's really cool to repeat it to people because they think you're really smart. So once you repeat it again and again and again, you're like, oh, now I really know.
Right. I think my favorite one she ever taught me was nature's toilet paper, and I know she's told a couple people, but does anybody know what nature's toilet paper is? What do you got?
Mullein.
That's right. Mullein is nature's toilet paper. But mullein is also great for respiratory. So you can I wouldn't do the toilet paper part and then the respiratory afterwards. But that's the great stuff that she's taught me. And once you feel it, it's velvety soft, and knowing that it isn't going to kill you, it's fantastic to know.
So the importance of sustainability to us are a few things. One of those is confidence and freedom that our family is going to have. The pillars of survival, shelter, water, food, storage, all of those things that you need to survive. It may not be for a really long, extended amount of time. It may not be for as long as you need it. And it might be an overabundance, and you might have more food than you can ever imagine. And then you have to start giving it away to your friends and family, or, selling it to make a profit. But it's that confidence and freedom to know that no matter what happens, whether it's an election year or whether it's a natural disaster or someone in your family passes away and you haven't had the time to get to the grocery store and you've got all these people coming and you got to feed them, you've got that stuff put back, and it can make you have such this comfort at the end of the day or at the end of the year when you're like, you know what, we've got it.
Right.
And we've got enough to share with our friends and family, and now they're going to be blessed because we work so hard.
Yeah, and y'all, I want to end it with how we started and what we tell our children. Don't be a trunk, be a branch. And really sit back and think about what that means, and that is about freedom, right? So freedom is out there on the end of that branch, right? You could break, you're gonna fall, you're gonna have mistakes, it's not gonna go perfect from the very beginning, right? But keep climbing that trunk and keep going back out on that branch until it holds, because it will eventually hold. And I promise you, the freedom and just relaxation that her and I have on a daily basis is what I want everybody in this room to have eventually, if you don't have it already. It is the greatest freedom in the world, knowing that if you had to stay home, you're good. You got your best friend beside you, you got your kids with you, you got your family on the compound. Y'all can just have a family reunion and hang back and act like it's the best times that you've ever had. It is freedom, true freedom. So I promise you all, if it is something that you're thinking about or something that you're driving for, stick with it. Don't stop. You're going to stumble. You're going to fall. I've smacked my face many times. She always picks me back up.
And somehow it always is on camera. It's never privately. We can't ever just sit back and laugh about it. It always gets recorded, and then the whole world gets to see.
Yeah, and sometimes I would cut some out if it just really aggravated me that it happened. But now her brother also edits our videos, and he looks for them.
Yeah.
He's checking it out to see if Zach fell back here somewhere in the corner. But seriously, y'all, we appreciate y'all having us here, and we're going to open it up for Q&A. But if y'all have any questions outside of this, or if it's something that maybe you don't want to ask in front of everybody, reach out to us. Our email is stivershomestead@gmail.com. That's the best way to get a hold of us. Kind of the messengers and the comments, it gets a little flooded with spam, so it's hard for us to get in there and find the real ones. So just email us. We're happy to answer any questions that you have, because we really do mean it. We want to see everybody have the freedom that at least we think we have, right? All right, y'all. Well, that is all we have for y'all today. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with us and attending, and we'll be down here at our booth, so y'all can say hi to us.
Thank you for not falling asleep.
Yeah, thank you.
Goodbye.